just let me breathe. The air is leaving and I'm lost in need of you again. You break me down and you make me surrender. We are as Romeo and Juliet. So many years.
Yo guys, what is up? Mox in our Path of Exile 2 video, and today we are going to be going over my final form Werewolf Oracle Druid. Now, I league started this build, I've been playing it from level 1, and I have tried so many different things on this build, skills, synergies, weird combos, and this is, in my opinion, the best we can make this build at our current level of investment. There's still many upgrades to grab, but we've achieved the things that I really wanted to set out and do on this build, which is make it an uber, like, pinnacle boss killer, a screen clear, and also really tanky. Now, I know it's very, very easy to just go to the description and click the link to the planner. However, like, that doesn't paint the full picture. There are some decisions here that I really want to walk you through, some frequently asked questions, and some things that are really going to help your build, depending on what stage of the game you're in, that we're going to be breaking down today. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's do this. So let's talk first changes. I was supposed to post a full build guide yesterday, but obviously, that didn't happen because we got the buffs, and I wanted to make sure that I played with them and made sure that we didn't need to, like, adjust the build for anything that was going on there. So all good there. But since the last update, we've picked up Entwined Realities. We got our Ascendancy, which is such a game changer for the build. Basically, what that Ascendancy point allows us to do is click random nodes like Ancestral Bond, which allows us to have unlimited number summoned totems. We don't care about this. We're not actually using this, but what this allows us to do is click all of the skills in these circles without having to allocate these small passive nodes leading up to them. What that does is it saves us a ton of skill points and allows us to pick up tons of extra damage, tons of survivability without kind of all the little wasted notables on the way there. So that is something that's been really, really great to do and allows us to really push the build further. Next, let's go over some frequently asked questions. The first has to do with survivability. I get asked, hey, I'm squishy, I'm dying. What should I be doing? What should I be looking out for? So we are sitting at 72% damage reduction from our armor for physical. One of the biggest things that is new in this patch is your ability to get extra percentage of your armor applies to elemental damage. I don't have a ton right now, but that is one of the biggest stats. It's going to make your armor work overtime for you because it will allow your armor's damage reduction to apply to all of your, like, elemental damage that you would be taking. Anything that rolls armor, you can get this on. So, for example, my helmet, which is rolled armor, I've got 30% of armor applies to elemental damage. We also get that in a bunch of different spots in our skill tree. And so finding that on any of your armor pieces is big. It'll make your armor work much higher or better for you. We're looking for, at minimum, 60% armor on this build. If you are, you know, like, leveling through your maps and you've got a little bit lower than that, try to get it up. But ideally, we're getting up to like 70% at endgame. The next thing to talk about is our defensive layers, which resistances are obviously very important. You want to get those up. I've got my resistances doing pretty well. Still need a little bit more chaos res. The next thing to mention is your life recovery per second from regeneration. Now, this gives you, with this build, Zealot's Oath. Excess life recovery from regen is applied to your energy shield. Your energy shield does not recharge. This is unlike a normal energy shield recharge, which has a delay. You need to not take damage for a few seconds before your shield can recharge. Because we're constantly in combat, we're constantly meleeing things, that just doesn't work for us. So we're using Zealot's Oath so that any regen that we're getting is going to be applying directly to our energy shield, and it's always going to be fighting. And if you get a decent amount of this, it becomes a much more reliable defensive layer. If enemies do get through our energy shield, then they've got to go through our mana. Our mana effectively adds another, like, 1/3 of our survivability by using the Mind Over Matter node. Mind Over Matter means that we have less mana regen. That's okay. We've got tons of ways to recoup mana. And when we have this node allocated, any damage needs to go through our energy shield and then our mana and then our health to kill us. So this is a ton of survivability. And to pair with Mind Over Matter, we're using Mana Remnants with Remnant Potency, Harmonic Remnants, and with the changes to Druid, we are also adding Katal's Rejuvenation. This gives us an additional 40% cooldown for all of our skills. You can use Lunar Blessing more. You can use your Arctic Howls more. All of your skills, your pounce, everything is going to be up more often if we're using Mana Remnants. And this is going to be overflowing your mana. So you get 1.5x. So even though my mana is like about 1,000 right now, I can get to like 1,500 in maps. So it's around the amount of life pool that I have. And whenever we're critting enemies that are affected by elemental ailments, which is like literally every attack that we're doing, we can get Mana Remnants, which are going to be giving us a bunch of buffs, extra cooldown. And we're also going to be rocking like mana on kill on our jewels. So, for example, I've got here some mana regen, some max mana, cold damage, and damage while shapeshifted. Getting literally just like a 2% mana on kill jewel will help so much. I've got a total of 3% mana on kill right now, which is like 40 mana per enemy dead. And we're literally killing screens of enemies right now. So you're constantly getting your mana bar back, which is going to, one, allow you to use all your skills and also allow you to stay more healthy. And then our last line of defense is our health, which we have a decent amount of. The next thing to talk about is screen clear. Now, I have wanted this build to clear screens of enemies ever since we started playing it. This build has always been a boss killer, but it felt weaker and less screen clear than like a bow build. This is my first league playing a melee build, and I really wanted it to be able to clear like a bow build, and I think we've done that now. So this is going to require an expensive upgrade. I wouldn't even worry about this until you're like at least doing tier 15 maps. Until then, you're just looking for a high physical weapon. High physical is really important because most of our skills are converting physical damage into cold damage. So, for example, our Lunar Assault, which is our main clear skill in the endgame, this will one-shot screens of enemies for you later on, but it's converting fizz damage to cold. Your weapon can get a added fizz and then percent increased fizz. The percent increased fizz is local to the physical damage on the weapon, which allows it to go to a much higher damage value than something like cold can do. Now, the big stat that we're actually going to be looking on these weapons, and I kind of bricked this craft, but you're going to be looking for this stat, the gain extra damage as physical. Now, the reason we want extra physical is because a lot of our skills are converting our elemental damage into cold, which is great. We do a lot of cold damage. We freeze enemies, and that's awesome. Extra damage is not something that's scalable. It's just going to go off of your base. However, it allows us to do a mix of physical damage and cold damage. And the one thing that you can do with physical damage is break armor. You can't break armor with cold damage without doing some like really weird tricks that aren't super consistent. But with bonus physical damage, which we also pick up in the trait, right now I'm at 43% of my damage is bonus fizz. We're going to use some tricks on Herald Device. We're going to use this support gem, Urok Smelting. I believe this is like 1 Exalt. I've gotten a few to drop. This reads that fully breaking armor with supported skills causes targets to permanently take 5% increased physical damage, up to 20%. That we don't really care about. It's nice. But the big thing is supported skills break 70% more armor. That, with Armor Break 3, allows us to break 20% of our physical damage dealt by supported skills. If we're not doing any bonus fizz, all of our damage is converted to cold, so we're not doing any physical damage. That's why we want this bonus fizz stat. Now, this bonus fizz is now going to be breaking armor. It's going to be breaking 20% and then 70% more of that 20%. And then we can put Armor Explosion on Herald Device. This allows us to trigger an explosion when an armor is broken, which deals 100% of our physical damage as fire, and they do 30% of our default attack damage. Our default attack damage on our weapon is very, very high, but this causes a bunch of big explosions that are doing fire damage. Now, on our particular build, we've got things like Batar's Vengeance. This is going to give us 69% bonus cold damage. We're also losing Lunar Blessing, which is going to give us 74% bonus cold damage. And so while this armor is exploding into a fire explosion, it's going to have a bunch of bonus cold. That means it can freeze and proc Herald Device. So you've got enemies exploding to cold, which are then exploding to armor, which is then exploding to cold. And that will chain throughout your screen. And if you have enough AoE, which this build has, we've spec'd into a ton of AoE, your screen will just evaporate because Herald Device will be self-procking and chaining with itself. Now, this is definitely advanced tech. You need a decent amount of damage to be able to do this. Otherwise, you know, if your Herald Device you're losing like quite a bit of damage on your Herald Device. Unlike normal supports, my Herald Device is like over 30k DPS. You lose some damage with this, but if you have enough damage in the build, which we do, you're able to make this just ricochet throughout the screen and do some crazy clears. And our Lunar Blessing also raining down will also cause these big explosions. And so that is kind of the tech that we're using for massive damage on this build. Now let's go over our support gems in Shred. We've got Rapid Attacks 2, Cold Attunement, Close Combat, Long Fuse. Long Fuse makes our ice shards from Shred detonations deal more damage, which is a big part of our damage of Shred. Most enemies that aren't like pinnacles are honestly going to die before you even explode them, but for those tougher bosses and map bosses, the detonations are huge damage. And then the final support, which you unlock at level 90, is I'm using Overextend. Now this gives us 30% more crit damage. This can push the build up to 400% crit damage, which is huge, but it has the downside of us getting dazed when we use our Shred. Now, most of the time that I'm using Shred now, at this point in the game, I'm only using it on frozen enemies. Like, I'm not really shredding on things that aren't about to get killed anyways, so we're mitigating the downsides while getting a 30% more damage multiplier for the build. If you're worried about getting stunned, you can just use like Crescendo Tooth. That's also good, and I rock a stun charm with this to make sure that if I do have the chance of getting stunned, I don't, which is really nice. In Mana Remnants, we've got Remnant Potency 3, Harmonic Remnants, and Katal's Rejuvenation. This gives us a bunch of extra cooldown for every time we get Mana Remnants, which we're constantly getting on the build. For Lunar Assault, we're using Batar's Vengeance. This is like 5 exalts. It's like a must pick up for this build, with Deep Freeze for extra freeze duration, Elemental Armament for more elemental damage, Magnified Area 2 for maps, and then Rakida's Flow, or Rakiata's Flow. This allows us to treat monsters' elemental resistances values as inverted. So if we were going to be dealing, if they have 30% cold res, and that means they take 30% less cold damage, we flip that to make them take negative 30 resistances, so they take 30% more damage, but the difference between 30% less and 30% more is 60. So for example, if an enemy has 30% reses, now we're treating that resistances and getting a 60% damage increase. So that is crazy. Oh, by the way, if you don't have Rakiata's Float, just use Cold Pen. 30% cold penetration on this would be more than fine. We just really want Lunar Assault freezing. And speaking of freezing, 4 pinnacle bosses, especially tier 3 pinnacle bosses, can be pretty tricky to freeze. We'll talk about our gear with that later, but I just put in freeze support. Freeze support is a 50% more multiplier to Lunar Assault. Lunar Assault has 576% more freeze buildup. This is not additive, it is a more multiplier, meaning that our freeze buildup goes to over 1,000% freeze buildup. This will allow you to instantly freeze pinnacle bosses, especially when we talk about gear. That is really, really awesome. On Lunar Blessing, we're using Magnified Area 2, Cold Pen, Elemental Armament, Cooldown Recovery. Cooldown Recovery is a 30% more damage multiplier for our Moonbeams because it's going to lower the cooldown interval between attacks. So instead of having a Moonbeam coming down every 1 second, we can have it come down every 0.77 seconds. And then lastly, I'm using Adalui's Bloodletting. This allows us to convert our life cost into extra fizz. This is absolutely not mandatory. The one thing that is nice about Adalui's is it's going to take the Lunar Blessing, which can cost like up to 400 to 500 mana, which is like a lot of our survivability pool. We can just put it on our health bar. And so when we cast it, we just lose a little bit of health, but we have so much health regen, we just get it right back. And so that is really, really nice. On Pounce, we've got Holy Descent, Mark of Siphoning, Freezing Mark, and Cold Exposure. This is your engage. It's going to make you tankier because it's going to put Consecrated Ground and mark enemies to be giving you survivability. It's also going to put an exposure on them, so you're going to want to pounce on a boss before you start lunar assaulting them. Savage Fury, we're putting in weapon slot number 2. This means that you can use it without consuming or costing any spirit. You do not need a second weapon. You can just like right-click the top of your weapon and put it in the second weapon slot, and you will be fine. This saves us 30 spirit on the build. In Herald of Ice, we've got Magnified Area 2, Urok Smelting, Elemental Armament, Armor Break 3, Armor Explosion, Arctic Howl, Tireless, Raging Cry, Brutal Armor, and Second Wind 3. And then in Cross Slash, I've got Magnified Area, Heavy Swing, Blazing Crit, and Culling Strike. And then lastly, in our Eternal Rage, we're supplementing the last of our spirit. You don't need these, but if you do have an extra spirit, you can put on Clarity and Cannibalism. Cannibalism is definitely the priority here. We really want to get a bunch of life back whenever we kill an enemy. For our gear, could definitely upgrade these, but in your boot slot, you're looking for as high energy shield as possible. I would shoot for like 200 energy shield if you can. The reason for that is Iron Slippers gives us +3 armor per 1 energy shield. So this is going to give us, like on a 200 energy shield boot, 600 armor. Mine are like 225, which means it's getting close to the amount of armor that is on my chest piece, which is crazy. This is just such an insane node. So definitely recommend getting some energy shield boots. We're looking for life regen, some resistances, and movement speed on this. Next up for my chest piece, I'm rocking a chest piece with a bunch of armor, energy shield, spirit. I've got some intelligence on mine, some resistances, and damage taken recouped as life, and damage taken recouped as mana. The recoup stuff is definitely not necessary. You could go for a base that has your armor applying to elemental damage, would also be very, very nice. But on your chest piece, main things are big armor, big energy shield, and spirit. Next up on your helmet is also a very important slot on this build because of Runic Helm. You gain +1 to maximum energy shield per 8 item armor on your equipped helm. If you're picking up a 800 armor helmet, that's another additional 100 energy shield. So that's really, really nice. On your amulet is where we're looking for a lot of damage in your suffixes. So you're going to be trying to get a lot of your reses elsewhere. You're going to want to try to find a plus level of melee skills. If it's +1, +2, +3, whatever you can fit in your budget with some spirit. I like to go for either crit chance or crit damage. And then any survivability affixes that you can get here. Increased global defenses, increased armor, health, mana, all things are good. The big thing is that this is a big damage slot. So looking for plus level of skills, crit chance or crit damage, all great stuff. I crafted this one myself, and we got a lot of extra armor, which is very, very nice. Now, on your rings, our God Roll rings, at least for right now, I do plan to upgrade these for some rarity things, but we're looking for added cold damage, max life, mana, and then some resistances. You could go for rarity as well. All great stats, or this one, which is increased cold, max life, mana, and some resistances. Some health leech or mana leech is also really nice if you have like an additional third suffix. We are going to be benefiting from that. I currently don't have like any leech on my current setup, so not something that I can really take advantage of, but it is helpful for the build. Next, on your gloves, these are an expensive upgrade. I wouldn't worry about buying these until you're fighting T3 pinnacle bosses, and that is for a very, very specific reason. So up until you get to T3 pinnacle bosses, everything is kind of instantly frozen, even pinnacle bosses, and you're going to want to look for gloves with armor, energy shield, and then on your gloves you want to find attack speed and plus levels to melee. Once again, attack speed and plus levels to your melee skills on your gloves is a huge, huge damage upgrade. However, once you get into T3 pinnacle bosses, they stop freezing very quickly. Their freeze threshold goes up a ton. And so specifically for pinnacle bosses, I will take off Lunar Assault's magnified area, and we put in actual freeze buildup. Freeze buildup is a 50% more multiplier to this base. So our base is 590 more magnitude of chill. But if we put in freeze, you'll see that our freeze buildup goes to over 1,000 extra freeze buildup, and then we put on these gloves, which immobilizes enemies at 50% buildup instead of 100. This means we need half the amount of damage to freeze. Your freeze calculation takes into account the damage that you're doing, your percentage increases to your like freeze buildup, and also stats like this, the magnitude of non-damaging elements. All of those things will go into our freeze formula, and picking up the ability to freeze at half freeze is ridiculous. This will also help in maps. It also can roll with skill speed, which is attack speed, and it comes with the multiplier for enemies immobilized by us take 20% more damage. Once again, this is a more damage multiplier. I picked these up for 4 divines, and they are a huge damage increase for our setup. And then lastly, I got very, very lucky with a Headhunter Chance Orb. Kind of crazy. Headhunter is a very expensive upgrade to the build. If you're seeing some of the like screen wide clear, the Headhunter is really helping with that, as we can steal modifiers from enemies. If you do not have a Headhunter, you're mainly looking for life, armor, resistances, and life regen on your belt. Your belt is a great spot to pick up some extra armor and also some extra regen. In our skill tree, we are speccing a lot of different nodes. I'm not going to cover everything because I imagine this video is quite long, but I do want to talk about some of the tricks that we are doing and some of the reasons why I'm speccing the way that I'm speccing. The number one question I get asked is, why are we not going blood magic? The simple reason for that is blood magic inherently provides no extra survivability. In fact, we lose like a third of our survivability by clicking this with hardly any upside. The only upside of clicking blood magic is that you can allocate some of the nodes around here, but we would be clicking these like crit damage bonus nodes kind of anyways. And so that is why we are not going for blood magic. Mind over matter has been really, really great for me. In Mind Over Matter, there's some extra nodes that we can click that are very nice. For example, Sanguimatic Rituals gives us 1% of our max life regen per second, and Arcane Surge grants more life regeneration rate instead of mana. Arcane Surge inherently grants 20% more multiplied mana regen. We could put like 1 point here, and we're just constantly getting Arcane Surge in maps, which is going to be giving us even more life regen, which is applying to our shield. We're also grabbing a lot of extra skill effect duration, bonus damage, increased damage against immobilized enemies, extra armor, extra crit damage, even more life regen. I really like this node for the rage increases our physical damage. Shred hits ridiculously hard at endgame. So that is really nice. I did make a little min-max here. We lost these 2 nodes to pick up this one, so we saved some points there. And then we're also grabbing Tribal Fury. We rushed to grab this in the campaign. This is such a big quality of life. Your strikes get extra splash damage, meaning if there's like 3 enemies ahead of you, you can just hit them all with Shred, which is really, really nice. For our anoint, there's a lot of really, really expensive anoints that you could go for. I actually, after trying a few, I've just been loving Doomsayer. Now, if you want more single target damage, if you're struggling with single target damage, I wouldn't anoint this. However, our Herald skills, just getting an additional 25% increased AoE and 30% increased damage is huge for map clear. And one thing that I've noticed from playing this build is we have 0 issues with single target damage. We have been like nuking bosses since literally Act 1. The thing that was lacking was AoE clear, and so that's what we've been really honing in on and trying to make as strong as possible. That's why we're getting some of our like screen clear effects. Doomsayer helps a lot with that. If you wanted to put on some more expensive annoyance, there is some nice ones over in the like Amazon area for Reaching Strike with increased melee damage and +2 to melee strike range. That is really nice. The other one that I was thinking about is Inescapable Cold for more freeze buildup, but mainly for the increased freeze duration on enemies, just to make sure we're bursting them down. Guys, that is going to do it for the build guide. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, you can drop by the stream anytime. I'm always live at twitch.tv/Moxie. We've been doing a ton of just like theory crafting together, which has been really, really fun. Testing different passive, different tech. And we've tried a ton of weird stuff, and I'm really, really happy with where this build has you know, arrived at, and I plan to keep pushing it even further. There's even more like upgrades and stuff that we can do. So I hope you guys have been enjoying the build. Hope you enjoyed the guide, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Take care. Bye.